Welcome back, guys, to the Player First podcast with your co-host, Coach Leonardo Capparelli, out in London, UK, and myself, Coach Fernando Tibaquira, out in New York, USA. And for those of you that don't know, the goal of our podcast here is to help educate specifically club players around the world, help them achieve their goals, help them get to the next level of play. And Coach Leo, he runs the Football Domain Academy out in London, and I run Tempo Soccer Academy out here in New York. So before we get started, Coach Leo, how are you doing today? How's everything been?
As you can see, I've had a haircut, Coach Fernando.
Well done, sir.
I'm getting ready for the fall season.
It's your fall season haircut.
That's it. Fall/autumn, as we say here in the UK.
Love it.
No, everything is well. Good week of training. We've got our last training session tomorrow morning before our big game on Sunday. So looking forward to that. We've had a change of weather, a drastic change of weather. It's very windy, that's probably where my hair went. It got blown with the wind.
Oh, man.
With my beard as well.
Everything just strong winds.
That's it. But as always, looking forward to another episode and talking about a topic that is definitely going to help our young players and also parents watching as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of our topic, today specifically, we're talking about overcoming mistakes. And I know personally with the players that I work with, this is a really big thing for my players, just to be able to overcome mistakes. I know it's something that they struggle with. Some kids can be really, really hard on themselves, and they don't know how to bounce back from mistakes, and it can be really tough on themselves. So I think this is a really, really, like you said, really, really important topic for young players out there. And really players of any age, if we're being honest, and even a lot of the families, like you said. So I guess my first question would be to you, Coach Leo. Why is it important to talk about this? Why is it important to overcome mistakes?
Great question. So sometimes mistakes can really affect confidence, I feel. And I don't know, in sort of society nowadays, we have a big fear about making mistakes, right? It could come down to maybe what we're scared of, what people think of us. We're scared to let people down. We're scared to let ourselves down. We might see mistakes as sort of a long-term obstacle rather than something that we can learn from. So I think this topic is really, really good because it touches on a lot of things and not only in terms of sport and football, soccer, but life in general.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens on the field, I believe, is very similar to what happens in the real world. Okay, you're going to have moments where you win. You're going to have moments where you lose. You're going to have moments where you make a mistake, where you're really confident, where you're not confident. You know, a lot of emotions happen on the field, and it's the same in the real world. You know, at school, you're going to have, for example, moments where you pass an exam, pass a test. And there's going to be moments where you don't pass the test, right? You fail. So today's, I think, aim is just to get players to understand that mistakes happen. They're part of life, but we can't let them become a long-term obstacle. It has to be something that is quick to overcome. We learn from it, and then we move on and try again.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. This is not just about what goes on the field, but also off the field. You know, I know a lot of players that struggle with making mistakes on the field, also struggle with making mistakes in the classroom, right? Like you said, failing an exam or a quiz. They don't know how to overcome those things and use it as opportunities to learn, right? And that's really the main goal, is getting players to shift their mindset from mistakes being permanent, something that's just like defines you and it's who you are, versus something that is just an opportunity to learn and to grow from, right? You know, I always tell my players each failure just means a step towards success, right? So each failure is just one step closer to your next success. And you can't get to that success without making all those mistakes, you know?
Exactly.
So yeah, super important. So how can players, I guess, overcome mistakes that they make, whether it's on the field or in the classroom? How do we help players to do that? What are some ways here?
That is a great question, and it's a question that I feel is a bit, it's quite hard to answer, right? Because depending on how you look at it will depend on how you overcome a mistake, right? Now, obviously it depends on the mistake, depends on the error, but something I've learned to do is always have good humor when you make a mistake, right? So don't take mistakes so personal and laugh them off. Right?
That's great.
Learn to laugh at your mistakes, because at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world, right? If you are making a mistake or you've came short on something, is because you don't know something, right? So there's that little percentage that you need to gain a bit more knowledge in order to get to that success. Right. So don't look at it as a long-term thing. Look at it as something, right? I messed up, or whatever that situation was. Have a good humor about it, you know, have a positive attitude. Say, all right, I messed up, but I'm going to try it again. Okay?
Yeah.
And if I mess up again, okay, I messed up twice. Let's try again. Okay. So the number one thing I believe is have good humor, all right? And have a good attitude towards making mistakes, because the more you have that positive attitude, the less tense you become.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I remember when I was younger, and I remember I was on this one team. I didn't last very long because I didn't like the coach, because he would always yell at us. Like everything was screaming, shouting. Got to the point where, you know, your ears can't, you know, you can't absorb so much shouting. And also it became such a really horrible experience, because it's like you became so tense that you didn't even want to play anymore, because it's like, I don't want the ball, because he's just going to shout at me.
Right.
So what I learned though is I learned to not let him affect me. So if I made a mistake, I laugh it off myself. Even though my coach didn't find it funny, I have to find it funny. Okay. Now that doesn't mean you're not learning, right? That doesn't mean you don't care, but you have to it's changing that mindset, right? In the sense that the less tense you are, the better you can function, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can relate to this, but when you're relaxed, you work better.
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%.
When you're relaxed, you work better, you train better, you're more focused. So it's all about changing that mindset, right? Can I get my body relaxed to say, right, okay, I made a mistake, I messed up, let's just do it again, right? Let's just go again. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree 1,000%. I think that's fantastic advice. Fantastic, absolutely. You can't take yourself so seriously all the time. And you got to change that perspective as a player to understand that the mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try to avoid or to not make mistakes, they're going to happen.
Yeah.
Period. So I think the first thing is to accept it, right? Just accept they're going to happen, right? And once you accept that, you shift your mind a little bit to know, okay, since they're going to happen, I might as well not be so serious about it every time. I might as well have, like you said, a good sense of humor about them when they happen, right? Because I know they're coming, and when I do something silly, and just laugh it off, move on, right? Because you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
So I think it's having that perspective to know that the mistakes are going to happen no matter what, and when they do, it's okay to laugh it off. It's okay to move on right away, right? And like you said, that doesn't mean we don't learn from it. That doesn't mean we just dismiss it and just forget about it completely. Now, sometimes we may want to, and that's okay too, right? That's okay to completely forget about some mistakes. But there's also sometimes we want to learn from them, right? We want to take the time to look back at them. And I think we'll touch on that in a little bit. But yeah, I think that's absolutely great advice. And one little specific strategy that might help some players out there is I tell my players this. I call it the 5-second rule. So I don't know. Do you know, Leo, coach, the 5-second rule for when you drop like a piece of food on the floor? Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So it's not that 5-second rule, okay? But my 5-second rule is basically when you make a mistake in a game, let's say you miss an open goal, right? The first 2 seconds is the part where you just take a deep breath and let it out. Just take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, relax for a second. The next 2 seconds, you fix the mistake, right? So in your brain, you just fix it real quick. Oh man, I should have used my inside foot there. The last second, you move on, right? So you do that really quickly in your brain, so you actually accept the mistake, right? You take it in like, oh, I made a mistake, and you can choose to either laugh it off, take a deep breath, right? Whatever that is for you, those first 2 seconds, accept the mistake. The next 2 seconds, fix the mistake, learn from it really quick. Oh, should have used my inside foot. And the last second, boom, move on, next play.
Yeah.
Right? And so I try to teach my players that little strategy, and it's not easy. It takes a lot of practice to really get that. You have to really force yourself to do it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I know that can be a really powerful strategy for a lot of players out there if they apply it, if they use it. But use it in practices too. Don't just use it in games. It has to become a habit that you do.
Something that I coach my players on as well, when we are in a game situation, is we have something very similar, is a 5-second rule. So when we lose possession, we have 5 seconds to win it back. Now, the concept of making a mistake is really related to this, because it's like, okay, I've lost possession of the ball. Now I've got 5 seconds to win it back and correct that mistake.
Right.
Because when you correct that mistake really quickly, when you do something good, then you forget about the mistake.
Completely. Yep. 100%. So
that's something that, you know, if my players are watching, which I hope they are, they'll know what I'm talking about, because we talk about this 5-second rule all the time. Like when you lose the ball, you've made a mistake, you've lost it, you got 5 seconds to correct it.
Yeah. And that's the same idea.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Same concept.
Same idea. That's a great team concept. Just in general, just tactic wise, but also you're right. It's also related to overcoming that mistake immediately, right? Because and that's the whole idea of the 5-second rule. It's accept the mistake and then make sure you fix it really quick in your brain. Maybe the moment's gone, like you missed the shot, you can't do anything about it, but just fix the technique maybe in your brain really quick. And so now you've taken in the mistake, you've accepted it, you've fixed it, and now you can move on.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea. Those are like the 3 kind of basic steps that I try to coach players through.
Yeah.
Accept it, fix it, move on.
Correct. Excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, Coach. What else is
I think as well, to take responsibility. That I think is a big one, especially in society nowadays, where it's easy to blame other people, right? When something goes wrong. So take responsibility for your mistake. and accept it, right? As you said, accept the mistake, take responsibility, and correct it.
Right.
Because even though you can maybe lie to someone and say, right, no, he made the mistake, or he made the mistake, you know, just blame someone else. But deep down, you can't blame yourself, you know. And that shall we say lie, if we can call it lie.
Yeah, you're lying to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, will live with you, right? You've got that with you. So take responsibility. If you mess up, you mess up. Who cares? We
Right.
move on.
And that's a really important point. If you don't accept the responsibility of the mistake, that can become a bad habit of yours, right? And that could lead to more, I don't want to say serious issues, but it can pile up later on if that's the type of habit you have, where you're always blaming and you're not accepting responsibility for your mistake. It can become a problem later on, right? Whether that's in the workplace, in college with your professors, or whatever it is, that can become a problem. So it's important that players out there, young players out there, and families, we're teaching kids to accept the responsibility, like you said, accept their mistakes. But again, it doesn't have to be such a serious thing. It can just be, all right, I made a mistake, I got it, I learned from it, and that's it. You move on, or you laugh it off, or whatever it is, right? So I think that's huge. Accepting responsibility is a big one. And so how do we take those mistakes, right? And because we don't want to just forget about them, right? We don't want to just be like, all right, laugh it off and not even think about it ever again. Like we do want to use some mistakes to learn, right? So how do we help players not only overcome those mistakes, but then learn from their mistakes, after they happen?
Yeah. I think it comes down to something we always talk about, is self-reflect. Right? When you self-reflect how you played, how you trained, how you done something, then you'll be able to see, right, what went well, what didn't go well. And the purpose behind self-reflection is that to actually analyze yourself and see what you're good at and what you need work on. Now, most probably the things that you need work on are the ones that you keep making those mistakes with, right? So if you're not very good with your left foot, and every time you get the left foot, you lose the ball, or you take a really bad touch, then unless you self-reflect and actually say, right, my left foot needs work, then you'll never correct those mistakes. You'll never learn from them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So self-reflection is huge. I'm a big believer in that. As a coach, I love to self-reflect on my sessions. And I always encourage that to players as well. When you get home, write 3 things you've done well, 3 things you need work on. Very simple.
100%. Yeah, you're right. We did. I think it was the last episode we had talked about this a little bit, about being able to self-reflect for players and for us coaches as well. Always think about what you did well, but also think about the things you can improve. Where were most of your mistakes during the game, right? Like you said, I'll take your example. If it was the left foot that you had trouble with, well then let's correct that, right? Let's take some time to work on that left foot more, whether that be your first touch or whatever it is, right? But take that time to now work on that. But you're right. If you don't reflect, if you don't look back, if you don't think about the mistakes that you made, you're not going to find those patterns that happened where you need to correct those things, right? Because you're going to make repetitive mistakes. And those are the ones that we really want to focus on, right? The ones that we keep repeating, because those are the areas that we need to improve the most.
Yeah.
Right? If you make a one-time mistake, very silly, but you know how to do it perfectly all the time, then that's okay. Those are the ones we want to laugh off and we can forget about, right? Those are fine. Those are going to happen. You're going to make a silly one once in a while. But then the ones that are repetitive, that keep happening, all right, we want to think about that. Why is this happening?
Yeah.
What's going on? Why can I improve on this? Where can I improve? Right. So self-reflection is super important.
Yeah.
I agree 1,000% on that.
And it doesn't just come down to sport, right? Because some people might be watching this and go, "Oh, this is a bit deep," right?
Right.
I'm only playing youth football, right? I'm 13 years old. I'm only playing for fun. But the truth is, self-reflection is a life skill.
Yes, big
Right.
time. And being self-aware, not even just the reflection, just being aware of yourself, of your strengths, your weaknesses, right? And it's 1,000%.
Being aware of what you're doing well, what you're not doing well, what you need improving on, what you need help with, etc. Because, like I just said, it is a skill, and the more you practice it, the more you'll realize that, do you know what? I have some really good strengths as a player, as a person, and those strengths are very valuable and can be valuable in a team, at school, in the workplace. But as you said, if I keep making repetitive mistakes on one thing, how can I improve that, right? How can I turn that from an area of improvement into a strength? But you don't do that if you're not self-reflecting or if you're not aware. Because I've worked with so many players that they make the same mistakes every time. Every time.
Right.
You repeat them with them. You repeat them. You're like, listen, take a first touch. Take a first touch. Okay. And they don't do it.
Right. Because they don't take the time to reflect for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Us as coaches, we can see these things and we can help you guys, help players out there with it. But ultimately, if players don't reflect for themselves and they don't see it for themselves, it's harder for a coach to help you with it.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you don't see it as something that you need to correct, you need to fix, then you're not going to really understand why you need to fix it. Right. So although a coach can help you and point those things out for you and help you improve on those things, you have to also be able to see it, right? And accept that, all right, this is something that I keep messing up on.
Yeah. Absolutely. But it takes skill. And it's just a question of repetition. Keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
Self-reflect. And then you'll realize that over time you will become more confident because you'll know what you're good at. You'll know what you're not good at. And most people don't self-reflect. Most people aren't even aware what they're good at, what they're not good at.
Right.
So if you can master that little skill, then it will definitely help you to avoid long-term obstacles.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. 1,000% agree. So, I mean, I think when it comes to mistakes for players out there, it's about understanding that they're going to happen, right? Understanding that no matter what happens, you're not going to be perfect. You never will be. Everyone makes mistakes, and you will too, right? So every single time you're out there on the field, every practice, every game, there will be mistakes that happen. And once you accept that you're going to make those mistakes, then learning that you can laugh them off. It's not the most serious thing all the time, right? It's not the most serious thing. We can move on quickly. Use the little 5-second rule if that helps you, right? Take 2 seconds to laugh it off real quick or to take a deep breath, calm yourself down. Take the next 2 seconds, fix your mistake, accept responsibility, fix it, and then move on, right? Just take a quick 5 seconds in the game in a practice to move on.
Yeah.
And then from there, just learn from them. Reflect. Like you said, it's a skill. We got to practice that over and over and over.
Yeah. And touching on the self-reflection, sometimes if you keep making the same mistake and no one is correcting you, right, it can be the environment you're in, right? Because like I gave you that example with the coach that just kept shouting all the time at us.
Right.
At the end of the day, I wasn't going to get better because there was no sort of constructive feedback given to me. It was literally every time I made a mistake.
Is that how your coach sounded?
Well, that's pretty much, that's what I heard anyway.
Yeah, it's like yeah, I don't know if you know Charlie Brown, but Charlie Brown, when the teacher talks, is just like murr, 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 murr.
That was exactly what he sounded like.
Yeah.
So then, if I'm self-reflecting, right? If I'm a player in that situation, I'm self-reflecting. I'm like, okay, I keep making the same mistakes. I personally know what I need to do, but why isn't my coach helping me? Right? Why am I not getting that confidence from my coach to say, listen, Leo, your left foot, you need some work on it. This is what you need to be doing. So it goes back to taking responsibility. Sometimes it just depends on your environment. You might be in the wrong environment that you keep making those mistakes and no one's correcting you. But you leave that environment, go somewhere else, and then you play for a better coach, and that coach sees it and goes, boom, all right, Leo, your left foot, you need to do this. And then you're like, oh, wow.
Right. And by the way, Leo, I've been meaning to tell you, you got to work on that left foot, man. I've seen a couple of videos. You got to work on that left.
I'm working on it, coach.
All right, there we go.
So
listen, a few wall passes, we'll get
there you go. That's all I needed when I was that age.
Right.
Instead, it was like,
if you had me there for you, Coach Leo,
I'd be playing in the Premier League.
You'd be right next to De Bruyne and all those guys.
And well, talking about the Premier League, you get this even at the high level, right? How come some players play better with certain coaches?
Correct.
You know, some players, when a coach comes in, they're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then with other coaches, they're a completely different player. Like they're scared of playing. They're not consistent. So that can be another reason you keep making mistakes, because you're just simply in the wrong environment, right? And that could prevent you from improving.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important point for a lot of the families watching, to make sure that the environment is conducive to learning, to growing, to teaching. Because if you have coaches that are like the one that you keep describing of just, right, that one, and you see that's just, it's not helping the player, it's not helping your child, you have to find an environment where the coach is allowing mistakes, but then helping players grow from those mistakes.
Correct.
Right. So that's 1,000%. It's environment is huge to player development, right? And that's our job as coaches to create that environment, right? Yeah. But like anything else, there's certain things, environments that aren't good, certain environments that are good, right? Right. So that's a really important point. I think more so for the families watching.
Correct.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, Coach Leo. Really good points there. I love this little chat that we had. I think it's super important for players to learn how to overcome mistakes, to be comfortable with mistakes. One thing I always tell my players is to not become shy around mistakes, but to run towards their mistakes.
Yeah.
If it's something that's difficult, if it's something that you make mistakes at, if it's something you're not comfortable with, go do that. Whatever that is. I'm not just talking football. I'm not just talking soccer. I'm talking just anything. If you make mistakes at it, if it's hard for you, if it's makes you uncomfortable, go do those things. Go do those things, especially now as a young person, as a young player. You want to get comfortable messing up. You want to get comfortable losing, making mistakes, bouncing back from those things. Because when you get older, it becomes more difficult to get in that mindset if you didn't practice that as you were growing up. Personally, I wish as a kid I challenged myself more. I wish I put myself in more uncomfortable situations. I wish when, people ask me to do certain things, I would be more open to doing them, even though it's something I never did before. I should have said yes. Like, let me just try it, right? So be open to trying new things, challenging things that you make mistakes at. Run towards those things. Go towards those things. I can't tell my families, my players this enough. Go towards those things, because in the end, right now, young players, you're still growing, you're still developing, and that's going to be so beneficial if you run towards your mistakes. So beneficial to your growth.
Correct.
And so I got a little passionate there. I got a little. It came out of me. It came out. It came out of me a little bit. My passion came out of me.
I love it.
So no, but for my players out there, run towards your mistakes. That's my final message.
I think, Fernando, you are an example of how every coach should feel, but unfortunately, not every coach is like that. Has that passion. So there it is.
There it is. There it is. All right, Coach Leo. Any last words before we wrap up here, or did we cover it all?
Avoid.
Right.
Avoid yelling coaches, I think, because coaches that treat you like that, it just develops fear, right? Develops fear. You don't play relaxed. You don't develop, and really and truly, your life is too short to be surrounded by those types of people. So just change. Don't be scared to change, because that might be why you're making mistakes, right? It's not because you're technically not good. Okay. It's not because you don't have the ability, but because someone's not giving you that confidence to go out and just be yourself.
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah.
So don't be scared of change. And as you said, face your fear and approach it head on.
Head on, baby. I love it. I love it. All right, great. Not with that head. Not with that head. Too much wind. Too much wind.
Too much wind.
Oh, man. I can't. All right, Coach Leo. It was a pleasure speaking with you. As always, great talking about this topic. Yeah. And what do you have? I know you have your game coming up this weekend, right? Another league one.
Yeah, we've got a league game. For those that are watching, last weekend we drew 7-7.
What is up with these scores, man?
So in the last 3 games, we've scored about 24 goals.
Are you playing American football, or?
Man, you have to entertain the neutrals, right?
Gotcha.
As a coach, it's not good for my heart, I can tell you.
Right. Up and down, I can imagine.
Oh man, but do you know what? As long as the players come off the pitch with a smile and they want to play again, I'm fine with that.
There we go. That's it, Coach Leo. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, Coach Leo. Have a great weekend. For my players out there that are watching this as well. They have just, by the time you're watching this, they have just played their first weekend of games. Good. So I'm excited to go out to the fields this weekend to watch some of my players out there perform. It's their first games in a long time, so it's really exciting time for us. So looking forward to that. Good luck to all my players, and let's have a great season, guys.
Good stuff. Good luck, Coach Fernando.
Yes, sir. You as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
You too.